Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this concluding session of the Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet 2015 in association with the Victoria Memorial Hall, Kolkata. We apologize for the delay in starting proceedings as the sessions throughout the day overlapped into each other and hence the delay. So without any further delay, may I request Mr. Anand Sen, President, TQM and Tata Business, Tata Steel, Steel Business Tata Steel, to kindly come up here on the stage and say a few words on this occasion. Mr. Anand Sen, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll keep it short and sweet. Is this okay? Yeah, okay. So it is my privilege to welcome you to the concluding session of the Tata Steel Kolkata Literature Fest. I think we have had some 5 exciting days of exposure to things intellectual. And what better locale than Victoria Memorial, and what better city than Kolkata, where the diminishing passion for reading still survives, and it is great to see so many people at a literary fest. Normally you see it for a rock show, but then the people we will have on stage very shortly, Mr. Amitav Ghosh and Mr. Rahul Bose, both of them renowned beyond compare, are nothing short of rock stars themselves. So I'm sure we can look forward to an hour or so of invigorating discussions. I'm sure that all of us will carry back with us some lingering memories, which will also create an urge to read and to wait for the next such occasion when it happens next year. At this moment, I would like to take the opportunity to thank all those who have toiled so hard to make this event a grand success, and a grand success it has been and it still is. So the governor, for having graciously opened the literary fest, to the administration and the government and all the staff of Victoria Memorial, all the people from the team which has organized this, Malovika and Jeet and their teams, and of course Tata Steel for having sponsored this function. I think our guests will be shortly on stage and we will be listening to them. I can only tell you that we shall continue to support this event, and we will come back next year with probably some improvements and much bigger and larger than life than it was this year. Thank you for being here, and do enjoy yourself. This is the hour, and tomorrow you will have memories. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anand Sen, and thank you very much for the assurance of continuing your support for this magnificent festival. May I now request Malavika Banerjee, the director of Kolkata Literary Meet, to kindly escort Mr. Amitav Ghosh and Mr. Rahul Bose to the stage, please. And while they are coming up and taking up their positions on the stage, may I request you, ladies and gentlemen, who are standing and crowding there on the side, please note that there are some giant screens put up. So perhaps if you go back a little bit, you might get a better view on the screens rather than craning your necks in front here. And with that, it's over to you, Rahul. There are microphones here. Here's another one.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I actually kick off the chat with Amitav tonight, Amitav has written something that he would like to read, which is about a flood of fire. So I'm not going to say anything more. Amitav, over to you, and then once you finish reading.
For about a century and a half, Kolkata was the capital of Britain's empire in India. As such, it was also the hub of British military power in Asia, the principal garrison in a garrison state. Many of Britain's most distinguished soldiers were to cut their teeth here, including the greatest British soldier of all, Lord Arthur Wellesley, later the Duke of Wellington. Through the years of the Raj, Calcutta was the launching pad for many wars, large and small. My new novel, Flood of Fire, is about a war that has disappeared into the furthest recesses of memory in both India and Britain. This is the first Opium War, which was fought between 1840 and 1842. The consequences of this conflict were of immense significance. Indeed, the Opium War was a foundational event in the shaping of the world as we know it today, not least because it resulted in the British annexation of Hong Kong. Britain and British India were the chief instigators of this war, and ultimately also its victors and main beneficiaries. This war was crucial to the consolidation of Britain's economic and military power, and it was also to have a profound, although largely invisible, impact on India, and particularly on Calcutta. Certainly the opium revenues helped finance this grand building that we see behind us. Flood of Fire tells the stories of a number of characters who, through accident or design, find themselves enmeshed in the war on one side or another. One of these characters is the brother of Diti, who some of you will remember from Sea of Poppies. His name is Kesri Singh, and he's a Havildar in the East India Company's Bengal Army. This army was called the Bengal Native Infantry, but its rank-and-file soldiers, or sepoys as they were then known, were recruited almost exclusively from eastern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. The officers of the Bengal Native Infantry, on the other hand, were exclusively British. Calcutta's military stronghold, Fort William, served as the Opium War's operational and logistical hub. It was here that the bulk of the expedition's forces were concentrated. The army of the expeditionary force was small in number, consisting ultimately of only about 4,000 men. Of these, about half were contributed by British regiments. The rest were sepoys from the Madras Native Infantry. But the Bengal Native Infantry also contributed 2 companies of volunteer troops and officers. In Flood of Fire, Havildar Kesri Singh is the senior-most non-commissioned officer in one of the 2 companies. In the 19th century, as you all know, Calcutta was one of the world's busiest ports, and the Hooghly River was one of Asia's most important commercial and military waterways. Overseas trade made Calcutta a city of extreme contrasts. There were many, many very poor people and also many very rich people. Of the commodities that were exported from Calcutta, the most important was opium, and the single greatest beneficiary of the trade was the East India Company. In the Bengal Presidency, the company enjoyed a complete monopoly on the manufacture and marketing of the drug, which was produced entirely in Bihar. And the commodity, that is to say opium, was produced almost overwhelmingly for the enormously lucrative trade with China. This connection brought many Chinese sailors, traders, and artisans to Calcutta, and by the late 18th century, there was a thriving Chinese quarter in the city. A few members of this community figure in River of Smoke, the second book in the Ibis trilogy. We meet them again in Flood of Fire. This last weekend, I had the extraordinary privilege of going around Chinatown and seeing all the major sites that are still there. It's actually an amazing complex of buildings. What's left is still completely mind-boggling, and I urge those of you who have not done a proper tour of Chinatown to actually make that effort. In today's Kolkata, the Chinese community has dwindled to a couple of thousand residents. Yet, traces of its past prosperity can still be seen in its temples and meeting places. So profitable was the trade in opium that through much of the 19th century, it accounted for 1/5 of the colonial government's revenues. An economic historian has computed that the opium trade, along with its ancillary industries like shipping, accounted for as much as half of the British Raj's earnings. This was Opium was, in other words, indispensable to the finances of the colonial regime. Without the drug trade, Britain would have found it impossible to maintain her Indian colonies. This was perfectly well understood by British leaders in England and India. And this was why they decided to go to war when China made an attempt to end the opium trade in 1839. It was on the Hooghly River, watched over by the guns of Fort William, that the fleet of the expeditionary force that attacked China was assembled. Its flagship was a 74-gun man-of-war named Wellesley. This Wellesley was built in Bombay by the Wadia family, which, as you all know, is still a major industrial house in India. Bombay was a major source of support for the war because many of its merchants had made fortunes by selling opium to Chinese buyers. River of Smoke, the second book in the Ibis trilogy, is largely about one such merchant, Behram Modi. The story of his wife, Shireen, is one of the major threads of Flood of Fire. The novel follows her as she travels eastwards on one of the many supply and troop ships that accompanied the expeditionary force. On the way, Shireen is given a tour of Calcutta where she visits the Parsi fire temple and also the old Armenian church. Another character who travels to China is Zachary Reed, a 21-year-old American who first made his way to Calcutta in Sea of Poppies. In Flood of Fire, Zachary's fortunes take an unexpected turn. And he himself becomes an opium trader, a very important opium trader. When the expeditionary force departs, Zachary leaves with it on the Hind, carrying a cargo of opium chests. Traveling with him as a servant is a 10-year-old boy, Raju. Unbeknownst to Zachary, Raju is the son of Neel Ratan Haldar, the former Raja of Raskhali, who figured prominently in Sea of Poppies and River of Smoke. Raju sets off for China in the hope of finding his father. But Neel, in the meantime, has taken employment with a leading Chinese official in Guangzhou and is helping to gather intelligence on the approaching expeditionary force. While in Guangzhou, Neel crosses paths with an old acquaintance from Sea of Poppies, Jodu, a young Muslim boatman. Formerly a Calcutta boat boy, adept at handling the sampans of the Hooghly River, Jodu is now a seasoned sailor with some skills that are of great value to the Chinese authorities. As was often the case with Indians who found themselves embroiled in Britain's Far Eastern wars, the sympathies of these two men lie with China, and they ultimately find themselves at the other end of the strange, conflicted connection that once linked the destinies of Calcutta and Guangzhou, India and China, joining them in a history of mutual destruction from which they're only now beginning to emerge. It is this history that binds together the stories of the characters of Flood of Fire.
All right, good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Running by the book. So Amitav, normally I read the entire book before getting into a chat with the writer. Here I'm groping completely in the dark, except for this wonderful piece that you've read out for us today. But I'm going to take a stab at it, and then we'll throw it open to the audience. The previous two books in this trilogy have a common strand. Sea of Poppies, River of Smoke, both talk of people traveling to other parts of the world in search of a better life. Migration in the case of Sea of Poppies, commerce in the case of River of Smoke. So clearly travel is a recurring motif in Flood of Fire, but of a similar yet different kind, it seems to me. The effects of these travels will not only be individual, as we saw in the previous books, but profound, as you put it, affecting the future geopolitics of the region. So can you talk a little bit more about this whole idea of travel that you've used in the third installment?
That's a very interesting question, Rahul. You know, when we think of travel in the 19th century and the 18th century, obviously some of the places we think about are like Mauritius, South Africa. But in fact, the bulk of Calcutta's commerce was directed towards China, you know, because of the opium trade and because of, say, cotton, which was going to China in large quantities. So, you know, travel to China was actually a very essential part of the whole economic foundation of Calcutta. So many of these ships that we now see on the Hooghly River, in those days, that would have been their trajectory. They're going to Guangzhou, which was called Canton in those days, and coming back to Calcutta. And this was what they were specialized for. The best ships could make that journey in 19 days. The other set of people who traveled out of Calcutta were, of course, soldiers, because from Calcutta were launched a number of Southeast Asian wars. The British attacked Java. They attacked and occupied Java for a short period. They occupied Bencoolen, an island off Sumatra, for actually quite a long time. They conquered Malaya, essentially, with sepoys operating out of Calcutta. Penang, which was then called Prince of Wales Island. So a number of campaigns were fought really out of Calcutta. So Calcutta was, when we think of travel, this is the part of it that we tend to leave out, the journeys of these soldiers who, of course, one of their biggest destinations was Burma, because through this period, through the 19th century, really slowly but steadily, the British were encroaching on Burma until finally in 1885. They just, conquered the whole lot. But all these campaigns were really launched out of Calcutta.
So, as you ring the curtain down on the trilogy, you've mentioned Behram Modi's wife, Shireen, was that her name?
Shireen,
Yeah.
yes.
And Zachary Reed and Diti's brother, who we didn't see much of in the first one, did we?
No, he was just mentioned.
He was just mentioned. But I don't know who else has read the first two novels of the trilogy, but I certainly have. There's a sense of, when you read the third and final part of this trilogy, I, for one, would love a sense of interconnectedness, where you start seeing this panoply of characters and places coming together in one. So forgive me for being, cinematic, but coming together and you say, this really sort of closes the circle on the Ibis trilogy. So don't hold back. Tell us a little bit more.
Certainly, for me too, after I've been working on this now for 10 years, so it was very important to feel a sense of closure, to feel a sense of all the characters coming back together, of seeing the interactions between them, achieving some kind of fruition. And it was really perhaps the most rewarding part of writing the book. I mean, it was very, very interesting and exciting to draw these strands together, to see them interacting, to see them creating these new lives, to be launching upon new journeys, and also to be finishing the old journeys. So all of that was really very, very exciting.
Which brings me to my next question. You announced the fact that you were going to write a trilogy. And it's not that you write Archie comics, right? So you announced the fact that you're going to write the Ibis trilogy 1 year into writing The Sea of Poppies. Didn't you, I just wonder, were you so sure that you were going to spend the next X number of years writing about this particular tale that would be that interesting? Or were you sometimes unsure and thought, what if I change my mind? What if after the first novel I say, that's it, I'm done with this? Or was it a complete that this could only be done justice to in a trilogy and you were totally up for it?
It was a number of different things.